All right. So it's been a while since we were on the log. We had the holidays, taught a lot of different things during the holidays to try to get in as much knowledge about that particular holiday as we could because it was Pesach. So where we left off with the law the last time was we had just finished verse 30 of chapter 28. My translation of that verse was, "And you shall place on the breastplate of judgment the Urim and the Tumim, and they will be on the heart of Aharon," which means they'll be worn over the heart, "when he comes before Yahweh, and Aharon will bear the judgment of the children of Israel in his heart before Yahweh continually." You see what's going on here. So, what's this? Does anybody remember? The Urim and Tumim, Onkelos Shemot by Drazin and Wagner, wrote the following: "It is impossible to know how these objects functioned, and scholars speculate with different ideas. The Aramaic simply repeats the Hebrew words." In other words, it's a transliteration, which in this case, since they're using the same alphabet, since it's not the right word, since they're, well, kind of it is, fonts, because the fonts that you see in most of your Torah and Tanakh, though, you know, those two books in particular, it's still using the Aramaic font. So Onkelos used the Aramaic font when he wrote the Hebrew part, and he used Aramaic font, of course, when he wrote the Aramaic. So the spelling is identical. And these would not be Aramaic words, by the way. They're Hebrew words. So it could even be words derived from something other than Hebrew. But, you know, in this case, they are Hebrew words. Kasuda wrote the following: "Thus it is possible to arrive at the following conclusion concerning the use of the Urim and the Tumim contained in the pouch of judgment. They served as a means of inquiry of God, that is to say, of obtaining from the deity, with the help of the priest, an answer concerning matters beyond human." Maybe that was kind. I still don't know what the word was there because it was messed up in my book. "It is also possible to assess the nature of the Urim and the Tumim, and to postulate that they were two lots, one for an affirmative and the other for a negative answer, or one for the first possibility and the other for the second." Now, I'm going to argue this again, but Kasuda also wrote, "The shape of these lots it is impossible to ascertain, for there is no indication of it given in the relevant passage. The etymology of the two words cannot assist as to determine their form because of its obscurity." What he's saying there is a lot of times the word itself will tell you what something looks like. You think more along the lines of a noun. If you say Ezel, you know that that's a goat, right? So it gives you a mental image. The problem here is that these words and where they're the root from which they're derived and the way they're put together and blah blah blah, the etymology of this word doesn't give us anything. We don't know what this stuff was. Don't know what it looked like. There's just nothing in the word itself that'll give us a hint. Now, Kasuda went on and said also, he pointed out that Leviticus 16:8 gives us an example of a priest using two lots in his decision as to which goat was for atonement and which one was for Azel. But then makes an enormous jump to the two lots being the Urim and the Tumim. There is no place in the scripture where the Urim and the Tumim were ever called lots. It never says that in any part of the scripture. If somehow they can be considered lots, then we can only assume that their purpose was only to help the priest choose which goat lives and which goat is turned out into the wilderness, if you make that connection at all. What I'm trying to tell you is this. I've heard a lot of people over the years in talking about God's law, they say, well, the Egyptians did this, so God wrote this law so that it would separate the Jews from them. No, 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 no. That's not how God works. God is right all the time. He's never wrong. And if he's ever wrong, refer to rule number 1, God is never wrong. So if God says do it this way, it's because that's what we like to call the right way. So when somebody perverts something, that doesn't mean that God's way is perverted, and it doesn't mean that God's trying to separate himself from the perversion. God's just doing what's right. So if in fact these 2 stones that were to be worn in this manner were used as lots, they were not used as lots so that God would make them fall on the ground a certain way or on the table or however they did lots. I don't know. Hollywood has its version, and modern day countries, and their religions have but we don't have any idea how it was done. And there's no description of it in the biblical text or anything else from that time period, so we don't know. But however it was done, it wasn't God saying, okay, turn this rock up and that rock down, and that'll give them the answer they're looking for. That is utter nonsense. If you have 2 goats and one is to be slaughtered and the other is not, and you don't want to have to decide the matters of life and death, then you take lots, you toss them, or maybe you pull a straw out of somebody else's hand to decide which one goes. That way you can say you didn't choose. Chance chose. That's why I don't really buy that they would have done this, except to the degree that ignorance overtook Judaism more times than we like to think, right? Because there's so many periods of time throughout history where few people that were Jewish even spoke Hebrew, right? It happened over and over. And then you had times where the Kohanim, the priest, from the top down, were just as evil as people who didn't try to live for God at all. Actually, they were more evil because they knew right from wrong and chose wrong. I mean, you had kings over Israel going and worshiping idols inside the temple and inside their homes, and then going out and doing their kingly and priestly duties. I mean, it's always been up and down and here and there and all kinds of stuff. And they have always had this propensity to take paganism and shove it into Judaism. It's going on right now in this day and time. They're still doing it. So it's probably just a human frailty. I don't think it's just a Jewish thing. I just think humans are that way. But what I'm trying to say is, if you don't want to make that decision or don't know how to make that decision, you're not depending on God to decide for you. That's nonsense. You're just deciding on chance. You're letting chance decide for you. That's all it is. That's what's right. Everything else is wrong. Okay. Hopefully that made some sense. But that's why I decided to go back over, kind of let you guys remember where we were and what we were doing. Okay. And then the rest of it I don't think is all that important to where we're going now. So we're truly beginning today here at verse 31. Now in English it translates very literally to, and do you robe the ephod whole violet. If you think about that, you can get what they're saying. Make the whole robe for the ephod, or ephod as most people call it, make it violet, a solid color. So it starts off with va'asita, it's to labor, to work about, to make, to produce, to manufacture. Asa, you remember that word. So they're telling them to make something, because we're still in make it mode. We're still making everything. We're making the the parts for the tabernacle. We're making the parts and the outfits for the Kohanim, for the high priest, the Kohen Hagadol, and for just the regular Kohanim, regular priest. So it's next word is et. There's your pointer. It has no meaning. It just points to something. What's it going to point to? Me'il, the robe, an upper garment, an exterior tunic. This would be the exterior garment with which I am currently wearing. Now, the tunic was different in that it's like what we think of as a poncho. You know, it's just folded over and there's a hole cut out for your head and you pull it over. That's what a tunic was. And that's what you call a poncho, right? I'm pretty sure. Anyway, it's the outer garment. And it says that it was wide and long and reached to the ankles, but it did not have sleeves. It was worn by women, but it was also worn by men of birth. In other words, if your father was the high priest or your father was mega wealthy, then when you were born as his son, you would probably wear one of these things because it was very pricey and it just was one of those ways that people very inconspicuously flaunting their wealth. All right. Yeah, the word was also used for covering. It's from the root ma'al, and it's the idea of covering. So you get secrets and covert because it's undercover, and it's even used of non-Torah observance in some places. So then our next word is ha-ephod, the ephod, right? A garment of the high priest worn over the tunic. Mm-hmm. That sounds weird, doesn't it? But it's not going to cover the whole tunic, right? So your outer garment being the tunic, and then, I had this little speaker thingy is on top of it. So you follow what I'm saying. It doesn't make the outer garment not the outer garment just because there's something on top of it. So anyway, it's a garment of the high priest worn over the tunic and robe without sleeves as well, divided below the armpits into two parts, the anterior of which covered the breast and belly, the hinder covered the back. These were joined on the shoulders with clasp of gold, set with precious stones. This garment reached down to the middle of the thighs and was bound to the body by a belt. Besides the high priest, others also wore this garment. David, for instance, when leading the sacred dance, and Shemuel, also known as Samuel, the servant of the high priest, and also the priest of an inferior order, though I don't have where that came from. Justinius said it, so if he's wrong, it's all on him. As a material, the high priest ephod was made of gold, purple, scarlet, and byssus. That of others was made of linen. Doesn't it sound like the opposite of what we just read? Anywho, it's saying it's all these different colors. And it says kelil. That's entire, it's whole. It's used of complete. But here, so it's saying make the entire thing techelet, violet. So what it just said about that thing being purple, scarlet, and byssus is wrong. But that's what, again, that's in the Jusinius. It's in the Hebrew lexicon. It is incorrect because the text tells us otherwise, so we know better. But the tehelet, remember, that's that species of mussels that's found in the Mediterranean Sea, a blue shell from which the cobalt purple is made. Hence, cobalt purple. It's a. I don't know why they say purple. This doesn't seem purple to me. This. I don't know if you guys can see this or not. See if there's somewhere on me it'll stick out a little better. Can y'all see that color at all? Okay. That's the best I can do. We can't do close-ups and whatnot like that at this time. This is actually made of that very mussel that we're talking about. They thought it had gone extinct, and then all of a sudden it came back with a vengeance. So it's there once again. Translation then is, and make the robe of the ephod entirely violet, this bluish, purplish color that we have. And we know exactly what it is because the thing still exists. All right, so the robe of the ephod, of those words, Nachmanides said it was a long sleeveless garment extending from the neck to the feet, which, of course, lines up with our lexicon. Entirely violet. The Babylonian Talmud in Zevachim 88b and Rashi both point out that no other substance could be mixed with the violet. In other words, it couldn't be violet and purple and viscous or whatever that other word was. I know it's not viscous anyway. Or was it? Now I'm not even sure. I was positive a while ago. Where's that word? Purple, scarlet, and byssus. Okay, I didn't think it was viscous. Anyway, Kasuda wrote, beneath the ephod, Aharon shall wear a robe. He also wrote, the robe is of the same color throughout in order to point up the multi-hued ephod that was worn over it. That whole thing is confusing, isn't it? All right, so verse 32. Literally in English, it's, and be mouth, head he, in midst he, lip, he will be to mouth his, round about, did woven work as mouth sleeveless vest, he will be to he, not he torn. This one takes a little more effort, right? Starts with vehaya, to be, to exist, right? So it will be fee. That's the mouth. Fee. It's the so-called from the idea of breathing and all that kind of stuff. But you also have to think of it this way. Remember, in Hebrew, one word is used for a lot of things. So, for instance, an example given, to smite with the mouth of the sword is speaking of the edge. And it's used for the edge or border from its similarity to a lip of a garment of the sea. The lip of the sea is where the sand and the sea meet. That's the lip. The edge of, like Florida, it's a really big peninsula. The very edge of it would be called the lip. Do you follow what I'm saying? Lip is you need to realize they're not just talking about something on a person's mouth. Then it says Rosho, which is Rosh, the head, right? It's a head, to be the head or leader, to be over properly the head of men or animals. Whatever is highest, whatever is supreme is called the head. The prince of the people is called the head. The highest place, the summit, is called the head of the mountain. That's probably all, but you get right. It's being used here a little differently. Then it says betoho, in the midst of it, the middle, the interior part, right? Then it says shafa. That's your word for lip. That's not shafa, that's safa, lip. To open the lips. In other words, to begin to talk. Because remember, the last word was P, or Fi, either way. And then this is Safa. I have Shafa written, but it's Safa. I'm looking at the Hebrew. To begin to talk, to open the lips, to enable one to speak. To restrain the lips is to not talk. But it's also used as the lip or the edge or the border, as of a vessel, the lip or edge or border of a garment, which is what we're talking about in this case. Then it says ye, yeah, literally that's he will be or it will be. Le peeve, back to the P, to the mouth, it will be, the edge will be, saviv, round about it. Remember what we're talking about. The edge, the lip of this item, all the way around, ma'asa, will be, it will be made, oreg, of woven work. So, if you could think of a poncho, right? And so you fold this piece of cloth over in half, and at the top, you cut the little half moon thingy. But now you're going to weave the little circly weave around it all the way around the lip of it. Y'all following what I'm saying? Does that make sense? Okay. So this is what it's telling you that God wants from it. So then it says ki kepi, so it's as lip, as the edge, as the entrance, tach ra, of a sleeveless vest, the breastplate made of linen, properly a military garment or armor. It's a, in this, you're going to do it the way they do the sleeveless vest. Then it says ye, yeah, so it will be low, and this is the sound alike to it. And then it says low, which is the other one that it sounds like, not. Yikare'a. It's horn, that's to bend, to tear asunder. So it's the lip is going to be sewn up in this way so that it does not tear. It's to make it stronger, right? So that's all it was saying. So here it is. And the opening of it will be in the middle of the head. The lip around the opening will be the work of a weaver as the opening of the sleeveless vest. So it will not be torn. Hopefully you guys followed that. Tell me, Donna, did that make sense? Okay. In the middle of the head, Kasuto wrote, in other words, the robe shall not be open in front along its length, like a shirt. But the priest, he said, shall put his head through the hole of the flexible neck. This opening had indeed to be pliant in order to allow the passage of the priest's head, but at the same time it had to be strong so that it should not tear when stretched to enable the head to go through. Brown driver Briggs argued that the idea of a coat of mail is not beyond the realm of possibility. I am now going to show you a coat of mail from this very time period. So let's switch over, please, to the other thing. What am I supposed to do? Just hit play? Or this is literally a coat of mail that was dug up. It's still laying there on the ground as they were digging it out of the ground. And it is from this very time period. So this coat of mail, if you will, we think of a coat of mail, those of us who know what it is, right? We think of it as the little loops of chain, you know, that was designed to keep people from stabbing through. But that's not what they were like at this time period. But they did, in fact, have one. Now, I think data DVD. I think there's another picture here that makes it a little bit easier to comprehend. Okay, so now here is a drawing that renders what it is. No, it's leather. I was asked if it was wood. These are leather pieces. And when the Chinese made one at about the same time period, they actually used paper. They took paper and they would pile the paper on top of the paper, on top of the paper, on top of the paper, and then somehow they pressed it all down. So all those little squares would have actually been little half-inch thick clumps, of this paper on top of itself. In this case, the one we're looked at was made of leather. This one, the Chinese made them out of paper. And by the way, you can see it on the series Mythbusters. They actually made one out of paper and shot an arrow into it, and it stopped the arrow. So it was quite amazing. But this is the actual shape of the one that we looked at. I think I might have one more picture, but I'm not positive. Let's see if we can. Oop, that's not possible. I have to hit this button, I think. I'm not positive how all this works. Yes, I've got to wait for it to. There it goes. No, not it. Not it. Okay, but this will help. So what we've gone through so far is, do you see the bluish, purplish thing that looks like almost exactly the same color as my zeet that I was trying to show you? It's more, you see it more down toward the legs there. And then the garment that we just spoke about, the tunic-looking thing, that they have with the multicolors, and it's over the top of that. And then over the top of the multicolor thing is the ephod. Right? Or is the ephod the multicolored thing? Yeah, I think the ephod is the multicolored thing. So your outer garment is actually that blue one. He's wearing a white t-shirt underneath it, if you will. And then over the top of that is his actual outer garment. That's the blue that you see at the bottom, but can't see because they have the vest over the top of that. And the vest is the one that has the head of it is sewn up to be strong so it won't be torn, it said. Okay. Let's go ahead and go back to the teaching here. All right, so of the word around in this verse, maybe I should go back and read that again so we remember what it said. And the opening of it will be in the middle of the head. The lip around the opening will be the work of a weaver, as the opening of the sleeveless vest, so it will be, so that it will not be torn. So we are looking at the word around. Onkelos' Shemot by Drazin and Wagner says that Onkelos used the word surround, but stated that it was only indicated. I disagree, since around and surround are the same thing in Hebrew. Thought I'd point that out in case you're using that particular version of Onkelos. And by the way, it is the one I recommend. It's done very well. Because you get the Hebrew, you get the Aramaic, and then you get the commentary that for the most part is very good commentary. All right, so where it says will not be torn, Rashi and the Babylonian Talmud in Yoma 73a both state that a negative law is found in that it is now a sin to tear the vest. And all I say to that is OMG. Or as God would say it, oh my me. I'm just saying. No. This is a clear case of Hellenized Western thinking overtaking the idiomatic Jewish text. The Hebrew is only speaking of how the vest is to be made, but takes it further in that it tells us why, in other words, so it will be strong. Why it's made the way it's made. It's telling us why, so that it will be strong enough not to be torn. There is no negative command here. There is no you're going to hell because you tore your vest. No, you either fix the vest or you replace the vest. In my case, I think you should replace it. I don't think you should ever give God less than your absolute best. But it's not a sin if it gets torn. It's just not supposed to be torn if you're wearing it in your duties. Oh, anyway. All right, so verse 33. And do you upon him, it's him, pomegranates, violet and purple and scarlet, crimson upon him his round about, and bells gold amidst them round about. So it's ve asita, from asa, to labor, to work, to produce, because they're being told to make something, right? So it's really not incredible. Then it says the Hebrew word all. It's not the English word all. It's the Hebrew word all, which means upon, over, above, any of those things. And we know what it means by looking at the rest of the sentence. Shulive, it's him. Literally, it's him, his, but it means it's him. The train, flowing skirt of a robe, the hem of a garment. It's, what would you call that? The lowest piece? Then it says, rimone, that's pomegranates. Then it says, techelet. Remember, that's the color. Remember from the species of mussel. Then it says, ve argaman, and purple. So we have the bluish color, and now it's telling you, and get the purple. It's a reddish purple, to be exact. It's from a shellfish that's found on the shores of the Mediterranean. Then it's vetolaat, and that's the scarlet. That's the more, well, crimson would be more of a blood red. Scarlet, it's from the word for the worm. Do you guys remember that when they were talking about the material that goes around the tabernacle? It goes, like at the doorway and between the holy and the holy. Okay, so you might be getting then that this is going to look a lot like that same thing. And this is shani, which is crimson, and that's that deep scarlet, that color. And then this is all, which is upon or above, that sort of thing. And this is shulive, it's him. So on it's him, saviv, all the way around it, roundabout, going all the way around. Ufa amone, and bells. Zahav, so it's bells of gold, or shiny, beautiful bells. It is the word that's used for gold, so they're going to use gold, no doubt. But gold is from the idea of splendor and shininess. That's the word's true origin. Then it says betocham, so in the midst, in between those bells, savi, that are all the way around it. I think I missed a word, didn't I? Got the gold bells. Oh, it started off with the pomegranates, then it's the bells. Okay. So then we get to the translation. And you will make pomegranates of violet, purple, scarlet, crimson, surrounding its hem, with bells of gold in the midst of them, the pomegranates, and that's what it's in the midst of, all the way around. So in the midst of them, Onkelos, Saadia, Rashi, and Maimonides, Mishneh Torah, Ke Mishkadash, all agree that the bells were hung between the pomegranates. There's an old saying in Judaism, ask 4 Jews any question and you'll receive 8 answers. I'm a little shaken by this paradigm shift. Somebody stopped the third rock from the sun. I want off. Here's an actual case of 4 Jews having one opinion. I may need a moment here. Oh, wait. Nachmanides and the Babylonian Talmud, Zevachim 88b, both believe that the bells were inside the pomegranates. Okay, I'm all right now. Man, that was a close one, people. All right, verse 34, literally in English. Bell, gold, and pomegranate, bell, gold, and pomegranate upon hems, the robe, roundabout. Pa'amon, that's a bell, so called from its being struck. Zahav, so these are those shiny golden bells. Rimon, and the pomegranates. Pa'amon, bell, zahav, bell of gold. Rimon, and pomegranates. And no, that's not a mistype. He just said the same thing twice. Then it says, all shule, on the hems, ha-ne'il, of the robe. Then it says, savi, all the way around it, round about. So what's it saying? Well, This is idiomatic. This is Hebrew of old. So it says, bells of gold and pomegranates, bells of gold and pomegranates. So what is that idiomatic for? Well, what it means is many bells of gold and pomegranates. Many of them. Don't go cheap here. Don't try to save a little money on that gold and put 4 of them and then 4 little pomegranates or bells in between the 4 little pomegranates. No, it says it twice. Bells of gold and pomegranates, bells of gold and pomegranates, because they're supposed to put a whole slew of them down there. That's the whole idea. All right, so 35. And be upon Aharon to minister, and will hear sound he when, it's actually past tense, so came he to the holy to face his Yahweh, and then come out he, and not he died. Okay, it's not as confusing as it would seem. V'haya, so it will be, and it will be, all which is upon Aharon, that's Aaron, Lesharet, to minister, to wait upon, to serve. It's what you think of. Venishma, and will hear. Remember, it's from Shama. You've heard that word, Shema Yisrael. Nishma, it's the same word. But when they change, or this added noon here in the front, it makes it future tense. So he will hear with his ears. He will understand with his whole heart and mind, and he will act upon what he has heard. That's what's being said here. Kolot, he will hear the sound of it. The sound of what? The bells. He will hear the sound of the bells. Bevo, when he, it's in past tense, but we would say when he comes. Or enters, you could say it that way. El, so when he comes to HaKodesh, the holy. So when he comes to the holy, he's going to hear the bells, right? Lipnei, it's the holy. Lipnei is 2 faces, literally, but that's in the presence of or before. Translated either way, doesn't make any difference. Before or in the presence of, and then it gives the proper name of God. So he'll be in the presence of the one and only creator of all things, and it gives his proper name. Then it says, Uve Zeto, and in come out he. So when he comes out, he's going to hear the sound going in to the presence of God. He's going to hear the sound as he comes out of the presence of God. It says, Velo, and not Yamut, and he will not die. Because remember, you can't see God and live, but he'll be in God's presence doesn't mean he'll actually see God. Just saying. The translation, and it will be on Aharon when he ministers, and he will hear its sound when he comes to the holy before Yahweh, and when he comes out, he will not die. So he will hear its sound. Even Ezra believed that the sound would remind God to answer prayer. Rashbam believed the sound of the bells was a signal for all to depart the sanctuary. Leviticus 16:7 says, and there shall be no man in the tent of meetings when he, speaking of the Cohen, makes atonement in the holy. And so that'd be the Cohen Hagadol in this place, in this context. So Rashbam could be right on this one. Certainly, if they know anything about the law, the Jews that would be present at the time know anything about the law. When they hear those bells, they're going to know what to do, right? So there's something to what Rashbam said here. He will not die. Of those words, Rashi saw this verse as a death sentence to any Cohen who did not wear all the garments. However, this verse can also be rendered as follows. And it will be on Aharon when he ministers, and he will hear its sound when he comes to the holy before Yahweh, and when he comes out. It, speaking of his service, will not be moot. In other words, because he's done what he's supposed to do, it's not going to be a dead issue. All right. 36, literally. And do you flour gold pure, and open you upon him, carving seal holy to Yahweh. Okay? So it's ve'asita from asa, to labor, to work, to manufacture, to produce. All right, so you're going to make something. We got it. Zeets. Not zeet, but zeets. Like half the word. And it's a flower, but in this case, it's a shining plate on the forehead of the high priest. It's used for flour, it's used for a wing, but there's going to be zahav, this gold flower, this gold thing that goes on the forehead. You want some idea what this is? Watch the new, what's that girl's name? Wonder Woman. Justice League. Look at what she has. She doesn't have a crown. It doesn't go all the way around. It just sticks on her forehead, right? Pretty close. Just saying. Doesn't say the same thing and mean the same thing, but I think that may be where they got the idea. So it says gold, zahav, tahor. So it's a pure gold. Going to make it a pure gold. Ufitachta, and open you. It's to open, as in to open the eyes and that kind of stuff. You know what to open is. Alav, upon it. You will open upon it. Pituche. How do we open upon it? Or, oh, upon it. Instead of, no, it said open, didn't it? I've confused myself. Let me look at this. And open.
This talks about engraving. So.
Yeah, it's, well, the idea of opening, they also use it for the opening of the mouth to speak words. And to not open the mouth is to be silent. So they use it in these words. So you can think of it as you're going to engrave on this thing some words, because it's like when you write something, it's like opening the mouth and saying something. So you're going to put it up on it, and then it says pituche, carvings. That's engravings. Chotam, a seal, a like a signet ring, something like that. So this is a seal, and this is kodesh. So this is what the seal is going to say, kodesh, la Yahweh. So holy to Yahweh, or holy for Yahweh. Either way you want to look at it, holy to or holy for, it's exactly the same thing in Hebrew. So those are the words. Kodesh, La, Yahweh. Those are the words that are going to be written across the top of this flower thing, right? You will make a flower of pure gold, and you will engrave on it a carved seal, holy to Yahweh. Kodesh, La, Yahweh. Even Ezra wrote that it was not like a crown, as it did not go all the way around the turban. It was instead something that was attached to the turban. Of the word flower, Kasuto wrote, the original meaning of the word zeets, which is related to the stem nazitz, is to shine and sparkle, and hence the signification flower, whose colors gleam in the midst of the grass or among the branches of the tree, and hence it also denotes the brightness of a golden crown. And he said, compare it to Psalm CXXXII, verse 18. I have no idea what that is. My Roman numeral thing does not include a C. I don't know what that stands for. Then he went on and said, but upon himself, on the king's head, his crown will shed its luster. But upon himself, his crown will shed its luster. All right. The plate of the high priest is also a kind of crown or diadem. And later in 29:6, it is actually designated the Holy Crown. But it differs from a diadem in that it does not encompass the entire head, but is placed only on the front half of it, namely on the forehead, according to verse 38, of course. Pseudo also wrote, the plate is not included in the list of vestments given in verse 4, since only the woven garments are enumerated there, whereas the plate is not a real article of apparel in the usual sense of the word. It is an adornment. It's jewelry. I added that. He went on to say, made wholly of gold, and consequently it is not mentioned above, even though it is also, according to the formula, used there. Okay. Other words, holy to Yahweh, or Kodesh la Yahweh. Onkelos actually wrote these words in Hebrew. He did this because it was a direct quote. So when you see that Onkelos spells his words exactly the same as the Hebrew words, you know that Onkelos is quoting. All right, Kasuda wrote, the inscriptions worn on the shoulders and heart of the priest indicated that he represented the tribes of Israel. He actually said Israel. Whilst, he really liked that word, or at least his translator did, whilst the words he carries on his forehead proclaim that both he and those whom he represents, as well as all the services he performs as a priest, are completely holy to the Lord. Pretty good stuff. All right, so we have 37. And set you with he upon cord violet, and be upon the turban to front faces the turban he will be. All right, so you have vesanta and set is to set, to put, to place, to constitute, to found. I like this. To this belongs the phrase in which God has said, Sum Shemo. God is said to place his name anywhere. In other words, to set his seat anywhere, which means to occupy the temple or holy place. So think of it as put it there, place it there. This is oto, so place it with it. And this is all, which is upon or above, petil, on the cord. You place it, what it's saying is you take this flower thing that has the words written on it now, engraved in it, and you're going to put it up here, and it says how you're going to do it. You're going to tie it up there with a thread of linen. Or a thread of line, as I wrote. Tehelet. And the thread will be violet. It'll be from the shellfish. It's this blue color that I have on my ZZ oats on all of them. Okay. Then it says Vehaya, and it will be all upon Hamitz Nafet. It'll be on the turban. So you're going to tie it to the turban. You're not tying it to his head. You're tying it to the turban. And yes, it's what you think of. It's today's word, the towel wrapped on your head. That's a turban. That's exactly what they're talking about. And so it'll be tied to the turban, to mul, to the front. Obviously, you don't want it on the back. Pene, that's faces, facing, in other words. Ha meets nefet, the turban. It will be, it will be so. And you will place it, the flower, on a violet, or should say with a violet cord. I'm trying to say violent. I get the word violet. You will place it with a violet cord, and it will be on the turban, facing front. It will be on the turban. That's what was all that confusion was about. So the words a violet cord. Kasuda wrote the following. Put it on a lace of deep violet. That means you shall fasten the plate by a ribbon or fine cord of deep violet, which was apparently inserted into two holes at the two extremities of the plate, one on the right and the other on the left, and it, the plate, shall rest on the turban that is on the priest's head. All right. This. Look up there at the top that says 26 underscore some number through some number. What's the last number? 43. Okay, let's see where we go from here. Verse 38, and be upon forehead Aharon, and will bear Aharon guilt the holies, that he holy they, children Yisrael, to all gifts holy them, and be upon forehead he continually to pleasure to them to face his Yahweh. So vehaya, and it will be all, which is upon mezach, on the forehead, Aharon. So it's going to be on Aharon's forehead. And Venasa, and he will lift up. It's, if you lift up, what are you doing? You're bearing something, right? So when the waters lifted up, it bore the ark, right? So there's that idea. So he will bear, he will lift up, if you will. What's our next word? Aharon will lift up. Avon, he will lift up the guilt. That's the perversity, the depravity, the crime, the sin. It's rebellion against the Torah. It's that simple. So he's going to lift up that rebellion. HaKodashim, the holies, in the holy place. Asher, which Yakidishu, and that's from Kadosh, where I don't know how to say this. It doesn't make any sense this way. It's using the word holy. Literally it says he, which generally means it. He, holy, they. So they will be holy. There we go. And who are the they? B'nai, the children. And guess who? Yisrael. So the children of Yisrael. Lechol, to all mitanot, all of the gifts, all of the offerings that they're going to bring. Kadeshehem, all of the holy offerings, all of the holy gifts that they're going to bring. The Hayu, and it will be all upon Mitzchol, on his forehead, Tamid, continually. Le razon, and this is literally to pleasure, to its delight. It's, well, to pleasure is also, it means we would think more of for pleasure. Delight, satisfaction, to be pleasing, acceptable, to be approved. You'll get it. Lachem, to them. Lipnei, which is two faces, so it's before or in the presence of, and it gives God's proper name. So here's your translation. And it will be on the forehead of Aharon. And Aharon will bear the guilt in the holies, that the children of Yisrael be holy by all their holy gifts. And it will be on his forehead continually, that they will be pleasing in the presence of Yahweh. So it will be on his head continually, forehead continually. Actually, the Kohen HaGadol only wore this during his service, because the text said that's when he was supposed to wear it. For a week at a time, if you recall. And so continually means that it was supposed to be worn during the services from generation to generation forever. So you see how continually does not mean 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, forever. It doesn't mean, 365 days a year. No, it's just this 1 week. Every time this 1 week comes up. Every time it's time for this, he's going to wear this same outfit. Rashi, not understanding biblical Hebrew or idiomatic thought, took this to mean that the Kohen HaGadol must touch the flour the entire time he performed his work, which would be impossible. However, it was because of this wrong interpretation that Jews to this day attempt to touch their phylacteries the entire time they are wearing it, as if it being on their skin wasn't touch enough. I mean, he started something. Casuto attempted to connect the flower on the front of the priest to the box he believed every child of God was commanded to wear on his forehead. He then attempted to connect the color of the ribbon to the color found in the tzitzit that all God's children are commanded to wear. Casuto missed the idiomatic meaning of Shemot, or Exodus 13:16, which was that the Torah was the strength of our body, because it's used the word hand. That's why they put it on the hand. And mind. That's why the box, they put it on the head. They didn't, because the idiomatic thought got lost over time. The more Hellenized the Jews became, the less they spoke Hebrew, the further away they got from Jerusalem, the more ridiculous this stuff became. To the point that they began to wear boxes on their forehead and felt like they had to have a finger on it the whole time they had it on their head. And wore straps around their arms, trying to make it go together in a sheen, come out in this pattern, and trying to keep, touch it. It just got to the point of ridiculousness, because what it was telling us in the very Jewish way was that the Torah was the strength of our head. It was the peace of our mind. The strength, the Torah on our forehead means that we have peace of mind because we know where we stand. And the Torah on our hand is what gives us strength to go on. It's what gives us strength, just period. But even though Casuto missed this, he was close in that the flower reminds us that Torah gives us strength of mind. And the color in the ribbon, which does in fact match the color running through the midst of our tzitzit, should remind us of the Torah, which gives our body strength. I mean, it should have done that. There is a connection there, but not for the reason they're giving. All right. 39. And embroidered you the tunic, linen, and do you turban linen, and belt shall make did needlework. So it's veshivatsta, and you embroider you, so you will embroider, interweave. Ha ketonet, the tunic. Shesh, which is the number 6, yes, but in this case, it's the word linen. Then it says, ve'asita, asa, lift up, labor, work about, so you're going to make, and make, nitz nefet, a turban, shesh. So you're either going to make 6 turbans to put on this man's head, or you're going to make a turban out of linen. What do you think it is? Just saying. Going to make a linen turban. The avnet, and the belt. Ta'aseh, and asa. The ta is you shall. So you shall make your labor, you produce. You're going to make. Ma'aseh. Now this is the noun of action of the verb. That which anyone makes or does. It's a deed. So you really should think of this more as a deed, I think. But you'll make this of the deed that you will do will be made of rokem, of needlework. So you'll do it, it'll be done with needlework. Anyway, 39. And you will embroider linen tunics, because remember, there's one for the Kohen Haggadah, the high priest, and the one for the regular priest. They're all going to wear a tunic. And they're all going to be made out of linen. So you will embroider linen tunics, and you will make linen turbans and belts, and they will be made of needlework. It's that simple. Made of needlework. Casuto wrote, worked in the pattern of checkers after the style still usual today of tablecloths and napkins. You see this in the Middle East. You see people with the tablecloth looking thing they wear on their head, right? This comes from Judaism. They literally stole that from the Jews. And you'd be surprised how many of them are Jews and just don't seem to know it. Anywho, running out of time there. I guess I got to click on something here. I can't see my little mouse. There it is. All right. Where was I? So you got the tablecloth on the head. For this reason, the tunic is called in verse 4 a tunic of checkerwork. Apparently, this was the customary way of making stately tunics. Casuto also wrote, the head covering consisted of a long kerchief, which could be wrapped and wound round the head so as to give it a high and majestic shape. Furthermore, and you shall make a sash, a girdle, a belt, fitted over the tunic beneath the robe, according to Leviticus 8:7. This sash shall be the work of the embroiderer. Further, on 39:29, it is stated that it was made like the ephod and the pouch of fine twined linen and deep violet and dark red and scarlet wool. Thus, its manufacture was similar to that of the screen for the doorway of the tabernacle. We find that in 26:36. Casuto also wrote that the vestment of the other priests were to be like the garments of Aharon mentioned at the end in verse 39, but mostly they were to be simpler. All right, so we're going to go ahead and do the next threes because I don't want to just next week just do 3 of these. All right, so verse 40, and to sons Aharon shall make tunics and make you to them belts and turbans shall make to them for honor and for splendor. All right, so it's velivne and b'nai. Velivne. So it's and for the sons, Aharon. So and for the sons of Aharon, ta'aseh. You shall make, produce, manufacture, blah, blah, blah. It's from Asa. You guys know that word by now. Kutanot, tunics. That's that thing that's folded over and has the roundy hole with the woven headpiece. Ve'asita, and you will do lachem to them, avnetem. You will make for them belts. You always get girdles and girt and stuff like that, but it's a belt. Umigbaot, and turbans. So you're going to make for them belts and turbans. Ta'aseh, and you shall make, labor, work, produce, manufacture, that asa. Lahem, for them, lechavod. You'll do this for honor. And honor in Hebrew is heaviness. It's always used figuratively of honor and the glory and the majesty and splendor and that sort of thing. So so it's telling you that you're doing this to make these guys, you do it because of the honor of the position. You're making them look fancy and splendorous and stuff like that. Uletif aret, and for splendor, that's ornament, it's glory, poetically used of the Ark of the Covenant as the seat of the divine majesty. So, the translation is, and you shall make tunics for the sons of Aharon, and you will make them belts and turbans. They will be made for honor and for splendor. Now, the words tunics for the sons of Aharon, Rashi pointed out that the regular Kohanim only wore the tunic, sash, head cover, and underwear, according to verse 42, while the Kohen Hagadol, the high priest, also wore the zitz, breastplate, ephod, and robe. So you see that there was more for the high priest than there was for the regular priest. Casuto wrote, these two were to be of fine linen according to 39:27, but of a plain weave without the checkers. So you had the high priest with the checkers and the lower down priest, not so much. Casuto also wrote, Moses is enjoined to attire the priests with these vestments for the purpose of delivering to them the charge of the priesthood. 41, and clothe you with them Aharon, brother you, and sons his with he, and anoint you with them, and fill their hand, them, and holy you with them, and priests they to me. So it's Vehil Bashta, which is, and you will clothe. Before we go any further, Moshe did not take these men and take a rag and some soap and give them a bath, and then sew some clothes together for them and put the clothes on them like you do with your, 1-year-old son. No, he didn't do any of these things. It was his responsibility. So he turned the responsibility of the making the clothes over to the people who made clothes, the work of an artisan. He was not an artisan. And then for them to take a bath, it was only his duty to make sure that they had, in fact, taken a bath. Because back in those days, he would have been called the baptizer, because they would have, soap was really not a thing back then. It did exist, but not really so much a thing back then. For you to take a bath just meant you got yourself wet. You dipped yourself in water, and if there was stuff you could, you rub it off, and that was taking a bath back then. And so for some people, if they weren't particularly dirty, they just dipped themselves and came back up. So Moses' only job was to make sure that every part of them, hair and all, went under. And then when they came out, they had been given their bath. So he was the baptizer, if you will. Otam, I forgot what the word before it was. Oh, so you will clothe them with them, and then it says, Et Aharon, Ahicha, your brother. So you're going to clothe them. Okay, and it does say, and his sons. It's a little out of order for us. But so he's saying you'll clothe them. In other words, you're telling them to put these particular clothes on that you had made, Aaron and his sons. That's all it's saying. Then we go to Oto, his sons with him, Uma Shachta, and you will anoint them. It's to spread over with anything, especially to lay colors on anything, especially to anoint with oil, to anoint with water, that sort of thing. Otam, with them, ume leta, and fill or fulfill yadam, their hand. In other words, this will establish their position, their hand, their strength, their power. That's what that means. So it's vekidashta, and you will make them holy, vehihanu, and they will be priests. Li, God said to me. So you have, and you will clothe Aharon, your brother, and his sons with him, and you will anoint them and establish their power, because it says fill their hands. So you will establish their power, their position, and you will sanctify them as Kohanim to me. Establish their power, fill their hand. Rashi rightly pointed out that this idiom means to establish authority to do a job. Kasuda wrote, these garments shall be the external sign of their priesthood, and you shall put them upon them in order to indicate thereby that you are bestowing on them in my name the office of priesthood. He also wrote, you shall fill their hand, that is to say, install them, an expression corresponding to this idiom, word for word, found in the Akkadian in the sense of installing, the original meaning being to fill the hands of the appointed person with the material for the work entrusted to him and with the tools required for executing it. So you get, hopefully, the idea here. 42, and do to them underwear linen to conceal flesh nakedness from hips and to thighs be they. Pretty straightforward. Va'aseh, asa, so, and make, still making stuff. Lahem, for them. Michnese, underwear. One of the Bibles that was printed some time ago actually put the word breeches. And it's called the Britches Bible because of that one thing. But it's technically whitey-tighties would work because it's going from the hip and stopping at the thigh. What are the other kind? The boxers, I think, are actually what they're talking about, more in line with the times, from the hips to the thighs. But a thong would not work because the idea is it's supposed to cover everything between the hips and the thighs. Just saying. Then it says vod, which is linen. It's a thread, yarn, especially of linen, hence fine white linen garments. Then it's lechasot, to conceal, to cover, besar, to cover their flesh. Then it says erva, to cover their naked flesh. Mimat nayim, from the hips, va'ad, and to rechamim. I said that wrong. Rechayim, the thighs, to their thighs. You, they will be, to their thighs they will be. And make them underwear of linen to conceal their naked flesh from the hips to their thighs. Because this was not something that guys did back then. Just saying. Our last verse. And be they upon Aharon and upon his sons, when go they to tent appointed times, or draw near they to the altar to minister in holy, and not he bear they guilt and die they statute eternal, to he and seed he after his. That was pretty straightforward. Vehayu, and they will be on Aharon and on Banav, his sons. The vestment, all of them, from everything that they wear, everything, the turban to the underwear to whatever. Bevoam, when they go, El, which is to Ohel. When they go to hell. Ohel is the Hebrew word for tent, the tabernacle in this case, because that's the tent they're speaking of. So it's the tent moed of the appointed times. Then it says O, which is the Hebrew word for or. Or, so when they do the appointed times, or the gishtam, or when they draw near, El, draw near to Hamis Be'ach. If they draw near to the altar, if they're going for some appointed time or they're drawing near to the altar, they have to have this on. Le sharet, to minister, to wait upon, to do the stuff that God wants them to do. Bakodesh, in holy. Velo, and not yiseu, and they will not bear, they will not lift up avon, that's guilt. So avon is guilt, just saying. We say avon, but it's avon, isn't that avon? Just saying. Vametu, and they die. Kind of sounds like saying if they're not wearing all those clothes when they do this stuff, they'll die. Hukat, this is going to be a statue. Olam, it's an eternal statue. Olam is eternal. Lo, to him, Ulezaro, and his seed, Aharav, after him. So, and they, the clothing, will, all of it, the vestments, whatever you want to say, will be on Aharon and his sons when they go into the tent of meetings or draw near to the altar, near the altar to minister in the holy, that they not bear their guilt and die. This will be a statute forever to him, speaking of Aharon, and his seed after him. So once again, I want to point out that this is not a death sentence. The sentence is simply relating the fact that if things are not done God's way, doing them is a moot point. This concludes our journey through chapter 28. Shalom, shalom, y'all.